If you are still clinging to your codependent patterns in romantic relationships, or any relationship for that matter, this Cancer new moon is about to rock your world. Welcome to your tarot forecast for the new moon in Cancer, July 17th, 2023. If you're watching this on July 17th, that happens to also be my birthday, so feel free to send me some good Cancerian birthday vibes. And more importantly, it is also the day that the lunar nodes change signs. So this is big, big energy, both for the new moon and for that nodal change. So if you are feeling if you've been feeling stuck lately and you're just ready for things to move forward, get ready, because they will. They just might not be that comfortable as we progress into this next chapter. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Shea Walker. I am a professional intuitive coach and tarot card reader who also created a 90s themed goddess deck that we'll be using in this reading. And we do these readings every new and full moon. They happen in two parts. The first is for the general collective on social media like YouTube and sometimes Instagram. And then the rest of the reading, where we dive in a little bit deeper into divine path messages and a little more self-work, is over on my Patreon. So if the beginning of the reading that happens for both the general collective and the elemental signs of the zodiac resonates for you, you might want to head over to patreon.com/Shea and join the monthly mystics to see the rest. But without further ado, we're going to dive into the general collective cards. Now, I've pre-pulled the first three cards for our reading for just anyone watching, anyone that finds this video, this message is for you. And that's because I wanted to meditate on the messages for this Cancer new moon a little bit more than I have in past videos. It's because this almost is like a therapy session new moon. Cancerian energy is all about family and home and love and romance and how we define those things for ourselves. And it can be really disorienting when the energy wants to shift in those areas, because we get so attached to how we've done things in the past and we don't always go in and innovate the way that we've been doing things in regards to family, love, relationships, and home. So if you've been stuck in a rut, this is your ticket out, but you kind of have to be okay with getting outside your comfort zone. And case in point, our first card that we pulled, our goddess for this Cancer new moon, is Isis, played by Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace in Pulp Fiction. So Isis is a resurrection energy and very much a rebirth, but not always the gentlest rebirth. So the reason she's portrayed by Mia Wallace from Pulp Fiction, there's the infamous shot of adrenaline that happens for Mia Wallace to bring her back to life. And it's a very jarring experience. So that's kind of what this rebirth might feel like. It's not necessarily going to be a gentle, birthed into a pool of water, ease your way into the world rebirth, but that doesn't mean that it's not just as valuable and maybe more valuable, because it kind of shakes up our comfort zone already. And then the new moon is asking us to further shake up our comfort zone and redefine the things that we think about love, relationships, and home. So I pulled two more cards from the Modern Witch Tarot after that to give a general energy and advice in regards to this new moon. For, again, this is just the collective. We'll get into the signs and the elements in just a bit. The first card that I pulled is the Eight of Swords. The next card that I pulled is the Eight of Pentacles. So we have two eights here, and eights are all about boundaries and recognizing when to hold them and when to break them. So specifically, the Eight of Swords is about communication and maybe not wanting to hear things that people are saying to you, or turning a blind eye to things, or turning a blind eye to your own internal communication that's telling you a way out of a situation in which you feel trapped. So again, we have that feeling of stuck energy trying to get us out of that. So that's what this new moon is about. The Eight of Pentacles is about dedicating yourself to a craft to slowly and incrementally make your way out of a rut. And then the eights in general are about being able to establish boundaries when you need to, but break them down when they're actually holding you back from your full potential. So this new moon is very steeped in reevaluating the boundaries that you've placed around your life and your relationships. Because we oftentimes find boundaries for ourselves based on our childhood wounds. And it's a way to help us function in society with the emotional triggers that we have based on our upbringing, but they're not always going to serve us in that same pattern. Sometimes we can do the healing internally and not need those boundaries to be quite as strict, or maybe we need to move them slightly to the left or slightly to the right and redefine what it is that our boundaries are. So if you've been functioning within your life and your relationships with the same set of boundaries for the past decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, it might be time to look at those and ask yourself if they really truly serve who you are and what you want from these situations. So don't be afraid to do things a little differently underneath this new moon. However, because we are going through this uncomfortable rebirth, don't be afraid to keep some boundaries or put new boundaries in place that make you feel comfortable during this transition. So it's very fluid, the energy, and it's a water sign, so that makes sense. We're going to be creating boundaries and washing them away, and creating boundaries and washing them away. So I want you to think of your boundaries less as brick walls and more as a really sturdy sandcastle that you've built up between yourself and someone else. And it's there to kind of block the way, block the energy, but if you needed a wave to come in and crash it down, to start over, or to move things to a different location, you totally could allow for that to happen. It's not going to be that much effort to tear down that wall, to tear down that boundary. And that is the energy that we're working with for the new moon. Now, we also have the lunar nodes changing signs. So the lunar nodes change signs every 18 months. So while that's not a huge chunk of our life, it's a sizable amount of time for a good amount of energy to shift around in our world. And every time they change signs, we're going as a collective into a different kind of energy. And it's kind of recalibrating the way that we're moving towards our life's purpose. To give you the summary, we're moving from Taurus North Node into Aries North Node. And that means that we're going from this place of really trying to establish security and comfort and stability in our lives for the past 18 months and defining what that is for us and redefining what that is for us. And moving into being a little more action-oriented and being a little more innovative. So the Aries sign energy is very much about passionate movement forward. So it's really beautiful that we've established a sense of security, or hopefully established a sense of new security in our lives over the past 18 months while the North Node was in Taurus, because now we're going to move into this place of being able to take passionate action forward. However, Aries is a fire sign, and fire signs are known for sometimes being a little volatile. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to have a little conflict going on. Aries is also the sign of the self. So we're going to be very self-focused during the next 18 months while the North Node is in Aries. And the challenge there, just like our boundaries conversation, is going to be being able to ebb and flow between creating the boundaries that serve you and also recognizing that you still have to sometimes serve the collective and knowing when to move that sandcastle to place so that you're taking care of yourself first, but also not totally neglecting the collective. It's very, very fluid energy, and I think it's beautiful that it's happening while the moon is in Cancer, because Cancer does want to take care of those around them. So this is a really good day, if you're watching this on July 17th, to sit down and kind of journal out how you want to define your boundaries for the next 18 months and how you want to make sure that you're still taking care of those around you while taking care of yourself first. So that's a lot already, and that's just our general read. I hope that you're ready for more, because we're going to dive into the elements. So we're going to do water, air, fire, earth, and we'll pull 2 cards for each of those, unless more cards than that want to fall out. And again, if you watch your elemental signs, be it your sun, your moon, your rising, your Venus, and they resonate for you, you might want to head over to the Patreon for the extended. All the info is below. And we're going to shuffle up the deck and dive into our water signs first in honor of that Cancer new moon. So water signs, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. We already have one that's flown backwards over my shoulder out of the deck. So let me find out what that card is. It fell face up, and I'm going to just talk about it because it's the 2 of Swords, and that entertains me based on our message. But let me figure out what our advice card is. Our advice card, oh, the Two of Cups. I love that we have these pairs. We had the 8s paired up in our general collective reading, and now we have the water signs with 2 2s. So water signs, you are definitely working on your boundaries in regards to relationships. This could be romantic, platonic, or family relationships, but these cards are really telling me that that's your main focus in regards to these boundaries and these moving sandcastles that we're all working with. And the first part of the energy tells me that you might currently be kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because you're refusing to see things from someone else's perspective. So sometimes that can be kind of a bitter medicine to swallow because you want to think that your boundaries are in the right place and you're taking care of yourself. But in this case, it feels like you're kind of leaning a little more towards that self energy, and you're not recognizing that there is another side to this story, that if you let yourself soften those boundaries a little bit, you'll be able to see from the other person's perspective and actually create a more harmonious situation for everyone involved. So this isn't about neglecting your needs. We're still going to keep your needs in place. We're just not going to be so triggered by the needs of someone else that we can't hear what they're saying. So this is a very good new moon to set the intention to just get curious about how the people around you are feeling. You know how you're feeling. Stay in tune with that. Stay in tune with what you want for yourself or what you think you want for yourself, but get curious about what other people are feeling and how they see the world and how they see this situation that you're in playing out. This is definitely not a monologue conversation energy. It's a dialogue. So if you're in a situation, let's say with a romantic relationship, could be the others that I mentioned as well, but romantic relationship is the one that this happens the most, where you know what you want and you know what you're striving for and you know where you want this relationship to go. First of all, don't get too far in the future because you want to stay present in the current energy, but you've created these boundaries and maybe you've even set up some ultimatums with the person that you're dealing with. And you really have been trying to protect your own heart, which is beautiful. But I don't get the feeling that you've been listening or asking questions of the person on the receiving end of these boundaries and these ultimatums. And I think there might be some emotional undercurrents going on with this other person that you can't quite fathom without having them explain it to you. And maybe you're dealing with someone that doesn't open up about their emotions very easily. And in that case, your goal here is to learn how to find the right questions to get them to open up. This is, again, about curiosity. Because when you're in a loving relationship with someone that you truly care about, you should want to be curious about their feelings. And sometimes when we get to know someone really well, we can get to a place where we're telling them how they feel rather than asking them how they feel. So if that resonates for you, Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, this is a good new moon to soften that. And again, do not think of this as giving yourself over and disregarding your own needs. You can keep your needs and take care of yourself while also being curious about someone else. And the way that you do that is by not expecting someone else to fulfill those needs that you've set up. You are in charge of fulfilling your needs and protecting your heart and making sure you're nourished and cared for. If the other person does or does not follow suit with that, that's them. That's their energy. And that's how we create healthy boundaries. Boundaries aren't about telling the other person how you need them to behave. It's about recognizing what you're willing to accept from the energy that's being presented to you. And if you find that you're not willing to accept the energy that's being presented to you from this person, maybe you don't need to get curious about them. And the thing that you're actually blinding yourself to is that you are ready to move on to the situation. The great news is that the advice with the Two of Cups shows that there is a harmonious connection in your future. And I think for most of us, it is through getting curious about the people in our lives and asking them how they feel and trying to relate to them and have some empathy. But for some of us, it could be that you recognize the best way to take care of yourself in this situation is to leave. And then that is how you create that boundary, not by telling the other person you need them to change so you can stay, but by extracting yourself from the situation so that you keep your heart safe. I hope that reading served you well, water signs. We're dealing with some intense emotions, which is totally normal for a water moon and for a water season. And we're going to move into our fire signs next. So we'll get a fresh shuffle for the fire signs. So fire signs, we have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. We're going to pull you into energy and advice, and we have 2 that just fell out, so I'm going to take those as the energy and advice cards. Hang on. So fire signs, your energy for this new moon is the 10 of Pentacles, and your advice is the Ace of Swords. So this is good energy. The 10 of Pentacles means that underneath this new moon, I think you have established a good sense of home and family and community and security in your life. So well done underneath that Taurus North Node energy. And the advice of the Ace of Swords is to just be able to follow the strike of inspirations that occur to you. So I get the feeling maybe fire signs, you've actually grounded yourself so well in what you feel secure with that you're ironically not following your impulses as often as you normally would as a fire sign. And this is kind of just reminding you of that part of yourself, that as we go into this Aries North Node energy and we try and figure out how to be more self-focused while also being more community focused, I think you're actually having the opposite problem of the water signs who were going from being too self-focused to needing to be more community focused. You're actually going from being too community focused into needing to be more self-focused. I kind of want to applaud you because especially since Aries is a fire sign and that's the energy we're talking about with this node, you're acting against type a little bit. I think that shows that you've done a lot of self-growth and a lot of self-evaluation and recognizing the times that maybe you were being a little too self-focused and you've kind of bled it over into creating a sense of community and security with those around you. And now the universe is rewarding you for that. And it's saying you've done a good job, but don't let the pendulum swing too far over this direction. You want to make sure you're still coming back to yourself. So this doesn't even feel like it's really that heavy of an energy for most of the fire signs that are going to be watching this. It feels like it's more of a, if you have the impulse to just go have a day to yourself, take that day. Tell your family you're going to go have a day to yourself. Like it feels very casual, but it feels like you need to set the intention to allow yourself to do that because you've just gotten in this habit, this pattern of doing things for the community and for the collective. And the universe is like, yeah, but you still exist too. And sometimes you don't want to do the same things that your family or your partner or the community that you've built for yourself wants to do. And if you want to go off on your own and be your own little independent flame off to the side, you can do that. And you can do that because you've created this sense of security around that community. So you can leave and you can come back. So this actually reminds me a lot of what they talk about in childhood development, where there's a certain stage, I think it's around toddler age, where you want to make sure that a child is able to feel really secure around the parent, but also not feel like they're judged or in fear if they want to go out and explore. And the reason they can go off and explore is because the parents created that sense of security. And that's essentially what you've done for yourself. So bravo. And the only message I have for you is like, go take yourself on a self date. Follow your whim, follow your bliss at least once a week. Give yourself a once a week date with yourself to do whatever it is that you want and not worry about what the rest of the community is doing, and know that they'll still be there when you come back. So I hope that reading served you well. Fire signs, if you need more, you can find the link below for our Patreon reading. Up next, we have our air signs. So air signs, we're going to move into, whatever cards fell out. Air signs, we have Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, and I think we had exactly 2 cards fall to the ground. So let me see what those are. Air signs, your energy for this new moon is the Page of Pentacles. And your advice is the Ace of Wands. I love that there's lots of aces coming up in this new moon energy. Air signs, your Page of Pentacles energy is telling me that your work around boundaries and rebirth and sort of resetting the way that you are envisioning your future and reevaluating what it is that you want for yourself is going to be mostly around work and security, and maybe a little bit around home. So if you have any unfinished business from that Taurus North Node energy that was supposed to be home focused, you're still allowed to have a little bit of that bleed over into this Aries North Node. And I think that's because maybe there's something about your home that you need to carve out a space for yourself. And when you were kind of looking more towards community and establishing security in your environment, you were accommodating those around you. And you need to carve out a space for just yourself, a little nook or room or whatever. And then that is going to be how you reconnect to your spirituality. Now, spirituality is a loose term, whatever it means to you. For me, it means meditation, yoga, journaling, connecting to my guides. But if spirituality for you is reading a good book and just drinking a good cup of tea and connecting back to yourself and your own nervous system, awesome. The point being, you need a space for that. I think you need a physical space for that, and you need the emotional and mental space for that. So that is your top priority underneath this new moon, is to be able to create boundaries around your personal sanctuary, particularly within your home space. So whatever conversations you need to have, if you have roommates, even if you have pets, whatever you need to do to create boundaries to be like, this is now where I'm going to go and do my spiritual thing and connect to myself and feel reset, because you're going to want to feel reset. You're going to want to have that adrenaline shot to the heart to have your rebirth underneath this Cancer new moon and moving forward into this nodal change, because again, that's an 18-month process of going through the North Node in Aries. So that is the way that you are self-focusing yourself, is by carving out physical space and reconnecting to whatever spirituality means to you. Moving on from air signs, finally we have the earth signs, giving the deck a fresh shuffle. Earth signs, if you are Taurus, dropped a card. That's the first card. So Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And we already have one card on the floor, so we're just, oh, we got another one. Okay, we got jumpers all the way around for all of these readings, and perfect twos for all of them, so I love that. Let me grab your cards. So Earth signs, your energy for this new moon is the Six of Swords, and your advice is the Seven of Pentacles. Okay. So this feels like a more complex story than the other elements, and I'm gonna just talk into it and see what comes up. Earth signs, you are moving away from something that didn't serve you towards something that does. You're moving on to greener pastures underneath this Cancer new moon. And it's not an Eight of Cups energy. Eight of Cups would be like, oh my gosh, everything's broken and I'm moving away from this because there's nothing left here for me. It's more you recognizing that you deserve better and moving forward without there having to be anything broken in your past. And you're moving towards something, but you're also still a little held up by the thoughts of the past. So the first thing I have to say to you in regards to our conversation about rebirth and establishing boundaries and self versus community, because all of that energy is going into these cards, is as a Cancer, I can tell you that Cancer energy is really good for nostalgia. And there's nothing wrong with a healthy dose of nostalgia in the proper dosage. So you don't want to OD on nostalgia in regards to what you're moving away from. But there is something to be said about letting yourself reminisce about the good times as you move forward. And the reason being is oftentimes we're moving on from something that we feel is no longer serving us or we're done with. We've done so much of the looking at the negative to make that decision to be sure that we want to move forward, that we're carrying a lot of that focus on the negative into our future manifestations. So if you can find a way to move on from something with a place of love and gratitude and remembrance of why you enjoyed some of your time there, that energy is going to be pulled into the future or projected into the future, and you're going to cultivate this nice little stew of positive emotions and warm feelings and gratitude, and that's going to pull that type of energy into your future experiences. So that's the first thing I have to say. The other thing with our Seven of Pentacles advice card is that this transition might take a little longer than you would like. It doesn't mean that it's not happening, it is happening. But this moving into greener pastures, it honestly, as an energy reader, even forgetting about the cards, I feel as if there are things that need to be put in the works for you to fully feel settled into the new greener pasture that I'm moving towards. This feels like something like maybe there's a contract that needs to be negotiated, or there's a lease that needs to be signed. There's some, it feels very like almost like paperwork. So while you know where you're headed and you know where you want to go and it is on your path, it may not happen tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be taking steps towards it starting tomorrow. It's something that you want to make sure that you're taking it one step at a time. And I don't remember when our next Mercury retrograde is, but I feel like there might be one coming up. I know there's a Venus retrograde coming up, which does have to do with money and abundance. So particularly if you're doing some contracts around your finances or around something that costs is a big investment in other people or other people investing in you, you want to make sure that you take it slow. I don't want to sound like this is too much of a warning, because it's not that you're getting into something you don't want to be in. It's that you just want to make sure you're negotiating the cushiest cushion for everyone involved. Again, self and community, and making sure that both are taken care of. The best thing that I have to say is don't be disappointed that this is not a rapid fire transition, because it's actually working out in your favor. It feels like a negotiation period, and it could just be you energetically negotiating with the universe. Maybe you haven't fully defined what you want this future to look like, and by getting a little nostalgic and warm and fuzzy about where you've come from, that's going to help you define where it is that you're going and what you want to pull from that past energy into your future. And that energetic negotiation takes a little longer, and you want that to happen because you want to make sure that you're coming into a place where you are feeling in alignment with your manifestation and that it is exactly what you want. And you've checked up all the boxes on the order form, and you're not going to have any buyer's remorse. So allow it to take the time that it needs and enjoy the process. Enjoy the process almost like I'm getting the metaphor of decorating an apartment. So enjoy the process almost like you're visualizing what the space is going to look like, and you're purchasing things, and it takes things time to get to you. And you're just kind of taking it piece by piece and enjoying the process of letting this whole experience unfold and this whole vision of your future unfold. So I hope that served you well, Earth signs. If you need more, Patreon extended reading is below, and if you are watching this on the Patreon, the rest of your reading starts right now.